Imagine a courtroom where power isn't measured by the gavel, but by who can hide the truth the longest. Until one fearless congresswoman walks in with a stack of evidence so explosive, it shatters a judge's career and sparks a nationwide fight for justice. This is the story of Jasmine Crockett, the woman who proved that no one, not even a federal judge, is above the law. The courtroom was no ordinary chamber. It was a battlefield dressed in marble and oak, where high ceilings echoed with whispers, reporters shuffled in the gallery, and cameras waited just beyond the heavy doors. The air carried a suffocating weight of expectation. At the center sat Judge Andrew H. Stones, a man whose very presence demanded submission, feared by defense attorneys, admired by political allies, and whispered about in corridors of power. Across the room, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett entered with a calm that masked the storm she carried, her sharp eyes scanning the chamber not with intimidation but with calculation. This was not just a legal proceeding, it was theater, it was history. Every seat was filled. Activists clutching notepads, law students scribbling nervously, and rival politicians pretending to be spectators. The silence fractured when Judge Stones banged his gavel. "This court will come to order," he boomed, his voice dripping with arrogance. Yet even as the words echoed off the marble walls, everyone wondered if this would be the day the untouchable finally met his reckoning. Leaning forward, Stones fixed his cold eyes on Crockett, lips curling into a predator's smirk. "Congresswoman," he drawled, "this courtroom is no place for grandstanding. Leave your politics at the door." The words were a dismissal, an attempt to reduce her to an outsider. Yet Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned back, folded her hands calmly, a small smile playing across her lips, letting him dig his own hole. Finally she spoke, measured and steady but edged with fire. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this isn't about politics. This is about truth. And if truth makes you uncomfortable, then maybe it's not me who doesn't belong in this courtroom." Gasps rippled across the room. A pen slipped from a reporter's fingers. Even the bailiff shifted uneasily. Stones slammed his gavel again, momentarily cracking his composure. "You will not lecture this court," he barked. But the room had already felt the shift. The first blow had been exchanged, and Jasmine Crockett had landed it with precision. The tension in the courtroom had reached a fever pitch, thick enough to choke on. Judge Stone's gavel strike still echoed, but Jasmine Crockett remained unmoved, leaning in with a deliberate, piercing calm that cut through the silence like a blade. "Your Honor," she began, unwavering. "Every time someone tries to silence the truth, they hide behind authority. But authority without accountability is just tyranny dressed in robes." The words hit like a thunderclap, sending a ripple of whispers through the gallery as journalists scribbled frantically, sensing history in the making. Stone's jaw tightened, his polished mask of judicial calm beginning to fracture. "You dare question this bench?" he spat, dripping with outrage. Crockett didn't blink. Adjusting the mic, her voice rang louder, firm yet fearless. "I don't question the bench, Judge. I question the abuse of it. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's because you know I'm right." Gasps erupted, some shocked, some awed, as she seemed to strike past the robes and gavel, targeting the man himself. Stones tried to recover, gripping the gavel like a weapon. "This is my courtroom," he thundered. Yet Crockett's calm refusal to yield had already shifted the ground beneath him. The atmosphere crackled, every word carrying the weight of a gavel strike. Leaning forward, she locked eyes with him. "You talk about order, Judge. But where was your order when ordinary people cried out for justice? Where was your order when politicians bent the law to serve themselves? You weren't silent then. You chose sides." Her words hung heavy. Stone's lips parted, but no response came. Undeterred, Crockett pressed on. "You claim to protect the dignity of this court, yet you've let it become a stage for power plays. That's not justice. It's hypocrisy wrapped in legal language. And the people know it. The gallery stirred, transfixed. Stones slammed the gavel in desperation. Enough! This court will not tolerate baseless accusations. But Crockett's steel-like tone met him unflinchingly. Then prove they're baseless. Because all I see is a judge who hides behind procedure whenever the truth gets too close. In that suffocating silence, for the first time, Judge Stones looked like the one on trial. The courtroom had reached a fever pitch, each moment charged with electricity as Crockett's evidence lay spread across the attorney's table like a battlefield map. Every document a missile aimed squarely at the heart of judicial arrogance. Judge Stone's face was a mask of disbelief, sweat forming at his brow as he struggled and failed to regain control. His voice, once booming, now quivered. "You can't! This is unprecedented," he stammered, clutching the edge of his bench. Crockett leaned in, gaze unwavering. "Unprecedented? Maybe, but necessary. You've spent decades abusing your authority, and today, the people see it. Every threat, every hidden agenda, every manipulated ruling, it all ends here." She raised a folder containing transcripts of private conversations, financial discrepancies, and confidential communications with political operatives. "Here's the proof that you coordinated your rulings to serve political interests, not the law. And yes, every single piece has been verified and time-stamped." A murmur ran through the gallery as even the court reporters paused, sensing history unfold. Stone's hands shook as he reached for his gavel, but it was too late. The weight of evidence and Crockett's relentless resolve crushed any pretense of control. I need a recess," he muttered weakly. "No," Crockett replied sharply. "This ends today. You answer for every action, every cover-up, every injustice. The people deserve nothing less." The breaking point became undeniable. The judge who had once wielded power like a weapon now sat exposed, powerless, on the brink of accountability. The courtroom erupted as phones lit up like a sea of lights, capturing history in real time. Social media exploded, Crockett's words. "Your Honor, you called me a liar. But the only person who's been lying in this courtroom is you. And now the whole world knows it." Were shared and trending globally within seconds under hashtags like #CrockettEffect, #JusticeServed, and #ExposingCorruption. Memes proliferated, juxtaposing Stone's slack-jawed shock with humor, or framing the moment as a triumph of accountability. Major news outlets cut into programming. Analysts replayed her calm, measured delivery, and legal scholars praised her as a textbook example of effective advocacy. Civil rights activists hailed her heroism, conservatives acknowledged the exposure of corruption, and one prominent attorney tweeted, "Crockett just did what we've all wanted." She showed that no one, not even a federal judge, is above the law, garnering tens of thousands of likes and retweets within minutes. Educational institutions and law professors used the clip to teach meticulous preparation and courage in confronting entrenched power. By the end of the day, Crockett versus corruption had become a global talking point. The viral moment was no longer just about a judge's fall. It symbolized the end of unchecked power and proved that accountability could be achieved through preparation, courage, and evidence. The courtroom drama didn't end when Crockett left the bench. The consequences of exposing Judge Stone's misconduct rippled through legal, political, and social spheres like a shockwave. Within hours, 3 judicial oversight organizations announced formal investigations, and the Department of Justice confirmed it was reviewing the allegations. Politicians who had long aligned with Stone scrambled to distance themselves, deleting supportive statements and refusing comment, while even the Texas Secretary of State's office emphasized full cooperation and knowledge gaps. Legal scholars hailed the confrontation as historic, with law schools incorporating the Crockett-Stone showdown into curricula to illustrate judicial misconduct and the power of meticulous legal preparation. Civil rights organizations mobilized to review other judges with suspicious rulings, inspired by Crockett's evidence-driven approach. Meanwhile, Stones faced immediate economic and professional consequences. Speaking engagements and consulting fees evaporated, his country club membership faced scrutiny, and the FBI opened a criminal investigation, putting him at risk of the very penalties he had wielded against others. Across social media, the Crockett effect persisted, trending hashtags and memes emphasizing accountability and citizen engagement, shifting public discourse beyond partisanship into a nationwide reckoning. Defense attorneys and civil rights groups began scrutinizing hundreds of Stone's rulings, revisiting voting rights laws, criminal convictions, and civil cases under renewed examination. Crockett's actions demonstrated that even entrenched corruption could be challenged with courage, preparation, and evidence, making her courtroom triumph a symbol of justice restored. Her national prominence grew rapidly, with media outlets clamoring for interviews and features, yet she remained focused on systemic issues rather than personal fame, highlighting judicial misconduct, voter suppression, and legal accountability. Civil rights organizations, law students, and young lawyers drew inspiration from her methods, emboldened to pursue cases once deemed too risky. Political leaders across party lines acknowledged her integrity, while cultural commentators and social media personalities amplified her story, coining the term Crockett effect to describe evidence-driven exposure of corruption. Awards, speaking invitations, and expert panels followed, but Crockett remained committed to her mission: judicial accountability and protecting the rights of everyday Americans. The Crockett-Stones case had evolved from a courtroom victory into a blueprint for reform, a public testament to the power of courage, preparation, and justice in action. The aftermath of Judge Stone's exposure ignited a nationwide movement demanding judicial accountability, transforming what began as one congresswoman's courtroom battle into a rallying point for systemic change. Civil rights organizations, legal advocacy groups, and concerned citizens drew inspiration from Crockett's methodical, evidence-driven approach, while law schools incorporated the Crockett-Stones case into curricula, teaching students to identify judicial misconduct, gather credible evidence, and pursue accountability without fear. Young lawyers were emboldened to challenge entrenched judicial practices, and legislators at both state and federal levels proposed measures to increase transparency, scheduling public hearings on voting rights cases, financial disclosures, and communications between judges and political entities. Activists launched campaigns to review past decisions by judges with questionable records, prompting waves of appeals and legal challenges. Media coverage and social media sustained the momentum, as investigative reporting amplified Crockett's findings, and hashtags like #JusticeForAll and #CrockettEffect turned legal accountability into a nationwide conversation. Crockett herself became the movement's face, providing guidance to advocacy groups, mentoring young lawyers, and ensuring the campaign remained disciplined, evidence-based, and strategic. Her efforts led to bipartisan support for stronger judicial oversight, additional resources for oversight bodies, and a gradual erosion of the culture of impunity among judges. Yet Crockett knew the fight was far from over. For every corrupt judge exposed, others still operated in the shadows. She evolved her strategy from courtroom confrontation to a long-term campaign, coordinating with civil rights groups, legal organizations, and investigative journalists to identify further instances of misconduct, meticulously verifying evidence and maintaining credibility. She advocated legislative reforms for transparency, stronger oversight mechanisms, and stricter penalties for judicial abuse, inspiring lawyers across the country to adopt the Crockett method, combining preparation, forensic evidence, and public accountability to challenge entrenched corruption. Media attention remained intense, but Crockett used it to empower citizens and expose systemic flaws rather than pursue personal fame. The fight extended beyond courts to voting rights, criminal convictions, and civil cases affected by biased rulings, leading to resignations, investigations, and systemic reforms that restored public trust in the judiciary. Crockett's story became a symbol of what one prepared, fearless advocate could achieve: proving that no official, regardless of power, was beyond accountability, and demonstrating that courage, strategy, and evidence could spark lasting change.